Hello traders, and welcome back to another one of our deep dives here. My team and I put together this video today on the Australian dollar, talking about a potential reversal here. I'm really curious to see what you guys think about the Australian dollar, and I'd love to hear some of your comments down below. So please do me a favor, comment down below your thoughts on the Australian dollar. And if you like these videos, these presentations that we kind of go in depth with both the fundamentals and the technicals on a key chart or currency, do me a favor, give the video a thumbs up down below. So let's get into it. Australian dollar today is our topic for discussion. So let's see what we've got. Let's talk about the overview here. The Australian dollar has recently touched a monthly high in yesterday's session, right around the 0.66 mark. Now, private capital expenditure report comes out today, and the pair is pulling off the 200 SMA, or simple moving average, which is a big deal from the technical side. Stay tuned. We like to do the technicals towards the end, so we will get to that point as well. AUDUSD has strong correlation to the S&P. More on that later. The S&P being the stock market, the US stock market has been moving up quite a bit, and so has the Australian dollar. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, so stay tuned. So we need to talk about the bullish and bearish case, and we'd like to break this down. This, I think, helps people who are out there who want to see both sides of the story, trying to keep things as least biased as possible, if that makes sense. So some of the bullish cases that the pair recently tested monthly highs from March, and if it's able to actually push through that from a technical standpoint, that could be a big bullish breakout, and we could see kind of a shift in the overall direction technically on this chart. Now, the bulls think that this is a minor pullback and are waiting for any catalyst as a potential cure to the situation. For any catalyst as a cure seems more prevalent and the economy reopens. So there is some potential correlation here to things improving with the Australian dollar, which is, again, a little bit of a risk-on currency. People tend to buy the Australian dollar during better times than worse times, just historically speaking. So here's a little chart. We can actually see some interesting stuff here. What you'll notice is that price, again, has sold off incredibly hard back in March and early April, but since then has had a very strong recovery, much like the S&P 500 and other markets around the world, okay? So the Australian dollar has recovered sharply, but let's keep in mind where price is currently at. We actually saw in yesterday's and the day before's trading volume, we actually saw the 200 period moving average get rejected. So meaning price came all the way up to that point and we saw some sharp rejection. The big question on the technical side of things is this going to lead to a full-blown continuation of this long-term downtrend that we've been observing on the Australian dollar for years? So we'll see. We'll get more into the technicals shortly. Now we need to talk about the bearish case. Now, private capital expenditure report has a forecast at negative 2.6 and a previous report of negative 2.8%. Now, if you don't know what this means, investors basically care about this report because this is a leading indicator to the overall economic health, okay? A high number is more bullish and a low number is more bearish. So just keep this sort of stuff in mind. I would recommend that if you don't know what that is, go take a look, go do Google search on private capital expenditure. It may be a little bit more helpful there. Now, we need to go more with the bearish case and talk about the GDP set at a 10% drop in Australia. Now, this is something that's been bearish around the world. So you have to keep in mind with an open mind that, okay, the GDP in Australia is down, but it's also down in other places. So when you're talking about investments, it's not necessarily always about getting something that's 100% going to go up, but it's also about getting something that's going to outperform other markets. And so that is something to keep in mind. Australia's GDP has had a whopping drop of 10%, which is definitely pretty impressive. So the technicals, we're going to get a little bit more into the chart shortly, but basically if the Aussie can't break that high from March, which also happens to be right around that 200 period moving average at the time of making this, this could mean some movement to the downside, right? If nothing else, the trend is your friend, and the trend long term has been down. We've seen a lot of strength to the downside, and it's very possible we could just default to continuing to head down as some of these pressures and problems weigh in on the Australian dollar. Historically, again, can't break that 200 period moving average. We will see if that can change in the coming days or weeks. Key level of resistance marked by blue squares. So what you'll see here is there's the blue squares. And actually, we've got one other line here on the chart that we'll talk about a little bit. But first, let's talk about the resistance in the orange line or also in the blue squares there. You'll notice that key levels of resistance here are overall kind of still holding this chart at this current level, right around that 0.66 level. So we'll see if this can hold. Now, the orange line there is actually the S&P 500, okay? You'll see that is typically dropping much like the Australian dollar. So in a lot of ways, recently we've had incredible correlation between these two markets. We've seen things basically drop very significantly on the Australian dollar right around when the S&P also dropped off in volume. So definitely something to think about there on the technical side. So watching that S&P 500, if you think the market is going to continue to rally, Australian dollar could be a bullish idea for you. But if you think that things are a little bit worse than expected or worse than being priced in right now, and you think that there's probably some sort of problems around the corner, then very possible that we could see also the Australian dollar drop in correlation to the S&P 500. So the big picture here is that as things kind of progress here with the current situation that we're all in, if things remain bullish and things remain improving, the Australian dollar is likely to continue up. It's somewhat of a bet on whether or not you think that situations will improve or decline in the coming weeks or months. Now, it's very likely that things will probably improve over time. But more so important are some of the damages that have been done not yet factored in? Are there things that are looming under the surface? Are there bigger problems to come? And can that lead to a dip in stock markets and in correlation, the Australian dollar? So that's our thoughts there. This is, again, a presentation that myself and Frank put together, and then I just kind of presented here on YouTube for you guys. Let me know what you think down below on Australian dollar. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And as always, if you enjoy my content, do me a favor, subscribe to the channel if you're not already. I see that some of you guys are not actually subscribed to the channel, but you still watch it. I can see it in the analytics, so you're not hiding. But thank you guys very much for watching regardless, and we'll see you back next time.